So for those of you who are watching this after the fact and you missed, this live, stream, no, this is not private. This is public. So, how you guys doing today? This is Darcinovia here. I'm back with another review on another one of the 90s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. This is the second one, Secret of the Ooze. Now, this from many fans who grew up in the 1990s, is looked fondly for a lot of the people. But there's also a lot of people that don't like this movie either, considering it basically dumbed down everything that made the first one good. And watching this movie, if you were to marathon these three films, the second one especially, it's such a sore thumb when you go from the first one to the second one that I don't know. I don't hate this movie, but it's nowhere near as good as the first one. There's like no denying that. I'm just gonna have to throw that out there. What I like out of TMNT, is very different than what someone who may enjoy Ninja Turtles 2 would want out of TMNT. And well, I'm going to address these problems to the best of my ability. This is not a rant. This is just my honest, feelings towards, one of the movies that I grew up with, watching as a child. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze. In my opinion, if you were to compare it and contrast to the first one in its opening scene, New York looks too clean to me. It looks too like colorful. Like it looks like a stereotypical 90s kids movie with just the opening shot alone. It was obvious that this is not the same, feel as the first film. And I'll get to the way the turtles look, but I'm just talking about the opening scenes in the movie. Like the first movie, the opening scene, gives you a sense of intrigue. You're just like entering this dark and gritty world of New York City, in the late 1980s, which it was filmed, and everything just looks real. It feels like a real place. In the first film, New York City. The second film, when you look at the way New York City looks, it doesn't look real. It doesn't look like a real city that you would actually live in or anyone would actually live in. It looks too clean. It looks too colorful. And it's what's jarring to me when watching the second Ninja Turtles movie, comparing, to the first one. Another thing that I think is something I don't like about this movie compared to the first one is I don't like the fact that the Ninja Turtles no longer use their weapons. I know soccer moms bitched about the turtles, using their, weapons or the violence of the first film, but it was ridiculous. It really was ridiculous. I don't understand why the turtles couldn't use their weapons in this movie. It's not like they decapitated people or stabbed them in the first film, so I don't understand the logic. And it just doesn't feel right to me. The turtles not using their weapons. I guess this is coming from someone who's seen it, the 2012 and 2003 series, completely, and it just doesn't feel right. The turtles never using their weapons. I feel like they were trying to make this movie way too much like the cartoon. I said this, years ago that it was too much like the cartoon when I was talking about the 87 cartoon, and I stand by that. I mean, the Shredder in this cartoon even doesn't even feel like the same character as he does in the first movie. He feels like a complete mockery of what the character was before. Same thing with, Tatsu. He had this, menacing presence that you don't want to fuck with him, if he was in the back alley. But now he's the exact opposite of that. The turtles themselves don't even feel like the same characters as they were in the first film. Raphael feels too much like his 87 counterpart. Same thing with Michelangelo. And the only characters that felt consistent was Donatello. I feel like he was the only character that felt consistent from the first movie. And I'm not saying everything about this movie was bad, but there were some things that I just can't help but scratch my head now. It's like there was such wasted potential. I feel like the plot of this movie, if it was done in a darker tone, like in the same way as the first movie was, it would have worked better. So, yeah, I can't really, stress this enough that this movie is not bad. It's just it feels kind of like a generic 90s kids movie if you actually look at it now, compare to the first one, where it's something that you know, kids and adults can enjoy. Oh, I think the guy who did Donatello in the second film was great. Honestly, I have no problem with the voice acting for any of the turtles in any of the films. Well, maybe Ninja Turtles 3, but that's I'll talk about next time. I mean, I thought the replacements for Donatello and Raphael were great. You know, in this movie, I mean, I don't think they were as good as the first voice actors, in my opinion. I prefer those voices for the characters, but I can understand why they use different voice actors. But I think they did pretty well. Now, the design for the turtles themselves, I don't think they're bad. I think they're pretty good. I mean, Jim Henson's, I think those suits still look good to this day. I mean, that's probably the best thing about this movie is the suits in this film are more expressive than they are in the first one, considering they have a bigger budget to work with, so they have better sets to work around. But I feel like the thing they sacrifice is what made the design special in the first place. The first movie, the turtles looked like something that you could actually believe exist in the city of New York. These turtles, they're not bad design wise. They don't feel like they belong in the same world that we belong in. They don't feel real. And I guess the criticism I do have of this film, I'm sorry if this sounds negative for those who enjoy Ninja Turtles 2, is it's too cartoony for my taste. And I know Ninja Turtles is a kid's property. I know this. That's something that cannot be denied. So that's I'm not gonna rage because this doesn't appeal to me as much as the first one does. Ninja Turtles 2, um another thing that I don't like about this movie is it feels like, okay, don't get me wrong, I think Tokar and Razor are cool, but it feels like they were used as a replacement for characters they actually wanted in the movie. It feels like they wanted Bebop and Rocksteady in this movie, but Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman did not want those characters in there. So Tokar and Razor were put in their place. They are essentially the closest thing we got to a live action Bebop and Rocksteady until, you know, over 20 years later with Out of the Shadow, which I'll talk about that film, and I use that word loosely at a later date. Now, another thing about this movie, I'm gonna try. I want to get as much of the negative stuff out of the way because there is positives. I could say that I could talk about this movie. Casey Jones not being in this movie really sucks. I feel like the human sidekick Kano in this movie, I think that's his name. He sucks. I would have rather had Casey. Casey was an awesome character in the first film, and I would have, even if the tone was dumbed down from the first film, Casey Jones would have been amazing. It would have been much better than having Kano, because the actor that played Casey Jones was great, and the fact that his not being in the movie, his presence is surely missed. I think another thing I got to talk about is I know a lot of people are gonna might bring it up. April O'Neil, the actress they chose to replace the first one in the first film. I don't think she's bad as April. I think for what material it's given to her, I think she does a pretty good job of playing the character of April O'Neil. I feel like she was a great, replacement. The only issue I do have with this version of April, she's not given much to do. She doesn't really feel much like a character in this film like she does in the first one. And the first one, she felt like she had more involvement in the movie's plot and felt more essential. She feels like an afterthought more than an actual character. Now, I think we get to the positives now because I think I've talked about the negatives long enough. I mean, I don't hate this film. I do have nostalgia for it. I think the positive I could say now is the suits look great. Jim Henson's, you know, works still hold up even in this movie. The turtles themselves, they look, and the way they express, their emotions, they feel like, the actual, you know, characters, in a movie. It feels like something that's actually there. But like I told you earlier, with the turtles in the first movie, they don't feel as real. But then again, that's just me personally preferring the original designs over the second one. Another thing will admit that this movie does well is I think the fight choreography, despite the turtles not using their weapons, is still good as like it was in the first film. I think if you're not in the mood to watch something dark, I think this movie does have some funny moments as well and some memorable lines. Even though I don't think it's as memorable as the first one, in terms of quotes and in terms of moments, I still think it has some pretty fun stuff you can watch in this film. I mean, one thing I did like about the movie was Donatello's arc that he had in this film, which I felt like it was kind of wasted in a way because it felt like there was much more they could have gone with Donatello's character in this movie. But maybe I could talk about this later in the review. What I think Secret of the Ooze should have been. Another thing I do like about Secret of the Ooze also was, unlike later films of the franchise, Ninja Turtles 3, Out of the Shadows, and the first Michael Bay movie, the dialogue and the comedy is not cringeworthy like it is in the films that come after it. You could say this is probably the last good live action TMNT movie because the ones after this have basically suck. I mean, I feel like that this is one particular movie that you could particularly, pop in if maybe as a popcorn film. I don't consider it anything amazing or anything like the other TMNT movies. If this review is not as long as the first one, it's because Ninja Turtles 2, I don't really want to rant how much I don't like it compared to the first one because I've been doing that a lot. But I feel like in a way that's one thing about this movie. Some may consider it to be a little underrated because let's be honest here, any Ninja Turtles movie that's in the shadow of the first one is bound to suck by comparison. I mean, the first Ninja Turtles movie had amazing fight scenes. It had, a good story, a realistic setting that felt like the turtles live in our world. April living in an apartment that felt like she could realistically afford. Yeah, fuck soccer moms. Ninja Turtles 2 would have been much better if it weren't for soccer moms bitching. Oh my god, my little Timmy can't handle a little violence, or having the turtles say damn. Fucking soccer moms. I'm sorry, I do despise them. They ruin everything. They're so stupid. The Rat King should have been the villain. I don't know how that would have worked. Maybe that might have worked if Splinter was more of a central character. But then again, some of those ideas I would have actually liked to see in a Ninja Turtles movie one day, though I don't think it's going to happen. I think one thing Ninja Turtles 2 should have been, in my opinion, I think the tone should have been the same as the first one. Because let's be honest here, April suddenly having this like middle class like apartment doesn't make any sense for the if you've known anything about the character in the first one. Like the April's apartment in the first movie felt so real. You know, it felt like something that someone in the late 80s would actually own. I mean, think about this. April's son going from because this movie takes place right where the first one leaves off, going from having an apartment she could barely afford to having some middle class apartment that she shouldn't be able to afford at all. Just even if she is the highest paid reporter in New York City, it just doesn't make any sense. It just felt like the people who worked on this movie just didn't really care. I mean, I know this is just a movie, but if you're going to make us believe that these kind of turtles could potentially exist in our world, at least when we're watching it, try to at least have some sort of believability. I mean, my God. I mean, I know this is maybe nitpicking here, but April having an expensive apartment just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Yes, it was. It was your typical 90s kids film. It really was. I mean, there are some good ideas in Secret of the Ooze. I'm not discounting that. The idea of the turtles finding out about their origin and not really being satisfied with it, be devastated that, you know, they're an accident, that, you know, they only exist because of a mistake that scientists have made. I mean, if this were a darker tone movie, it could have been something incredible because Donatello took it really hard, but then again, it gets ignored right after that scene. So it's not like there isn't good in Ninja Turtles 2. It's just the potential is there. One thing that does bother me about Ninja Turtles 2 though is the Shredder. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, right when the Shredder went from a clown in the 87 cartoon and then went to a badass, ninja that you don't want to fuck with, then he goes back to being a clown again. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not alone, am I? The Shredder in Ninja Turtles 2 is a clown. I mean, he got easily owned. And the way he died in this movie was so anticlimactic, I can't help but face my palm. And yes, I agree. It should have been Bebop and Rocksteady that should have been in the movie, not Tokar or Razor. But if you know something about Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman, they hated the original cartoon at the time. And they didn't want anything related to it in Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze. So that's probably why Tokar and Razor exist. I feel like Tokar and Razor feel like an afterthought, if I have to be honest. I mean, if it feels like they originally intended to have, someone else like Bebop and Rocksteady. There's no way they did not have an idea to put them in there at that point into production. Not to mention, I noticed some really bad editing mistakes in this film. Like, there's one scene where Donatello does not have his bow staff, and the next, in the same scene, he has his bow staff again. It's like, did they combine scenes they reshot and the scenes they originally shot into one? It just feels so jarring. And I don't understand what's up with the turtles not using their weapons in this movie. It's so goddamn stupid. Oh. Yeah, unfortunately. And in my opinion, I think the only turtle that survived, from devolving to who they were from the 80, from the 1990 movie to Ninja Turtles 2 was Donatello. Because let's be honest here, Donatello wasn't given much to do in the first movie. I don't know what to expect from Ninja Turtles 3 when I review it, to be honest. I'll get to that in a bit. I think what they should have done with Ninja Turtles 2, I like to finish, is I think the sheer plot of the movie should have been about the turtles fighting about their origin. I think them confronting the Shredder again should not have been the main story. It should have been them finding about their origin and finding out that they're not really anything special, and in the end, and maybe the guy, the scientist that's introduced in the movie, he should have been the main villain, and he's revealed to be Baxter Stockman or something. I don't know, or one of the Utroms. I did hear they did have intentions to have the Utroms appear in this movie, at least with what's that scientist's name is? Perry, I think that's his name. Oh, Krang. He would have been an interesting villain, but I don't know how you could have done Krang back then. I mean, back in the 1990s, CG was still in its infancy. I don't think I would want to see a 90s like practical effects of Krang. It just would have looked awful. Every Ninja Turtles movie is better than the Michael Bay films, including Ninja Turtles 3. You're not changing my mind. I despise those movies so much. Though, if there's one Ninja Turtles movie, I will give you a preview what I think of it, that I have mixed feelings on. It's TMNT. Or I just going to call it TMNT 4, just to make it simple. Because that's just how I feel about it. Oh, Super Shredder in the 2012 series was the only time where Super Shredder, got a chance to do anything. Because Super Shredder, what does he do? He's in there for like 1 minute, kills himself, and that's the end. Oh, Shredder drunk the ooze. Oh wait, I'm sorry guys, but we don't know how we could film this entire scene with a fight scene with Super Shredder. I mean, the guy is buffed out of his mind, and we can't have the turtles use their weapons, so fuck it, let's just kill him. And here's the thing that really is stupid about this movie. Shredder could survive falling to a trash, whatever you call those things, and get crushed to death, yet he can't survive getting crushed by a fucking bridge or whatever you. Oh my god, it's so dumb. Shredder surviving is a plot hole within itself, and him not surviving at the end is also a plot hole. Yes. Ninja Turtles 2, if I have to be honest, is a guilty pleasure. It's not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination. I think if you think it is, you're blinded by nostalgia. I mean, I do think it's still a fun movie to watch. I mean, I would still watch this movie over most of the others. I mean, seriously. Oh, I know that he was played by that professional wrestler, AK Master. It just, what a waste. We could have used him in that scene. Yeah, where is Casey Jones? And here's the thing: it's okay. I'm just gonna say it. I know I said it's a guilty pleasure, but there's certain things that doesn't make sense to the plot. Shredder wants revenge, right? Should Casey be on one of those people on this list? Oh wait, the actor who played Casey didn't want to come back for a sequel, so I guess they just forgot he existed and gave us that stupid Kano kid. I mean, seriously, am I the only one that thinks that Kano guy in Ninja Turtles 2 is one of the worst Ninja Turtles characters ever created? I mean, I can't be alone on this. He's such a stupid character. I forgot he existed until I watched this movie again. Like, every time I watch Ninja Turtles 2, I forget this character exists. Like, even when I was a kid, I didn't like him. It's like, I don't care about this stupid guy. Where's Casey? Where's the Turtles? Every scene with him alone with Splinter just makes me cringe. And Vanilla Ice, don't get me wrong, Go Ninja Go is a catchy song, but oh god. In my opinion, Ninja Turtles 2 is what happens when you sell out. I would probably compare what Ninja Turtles 2 did to what Batman did after Batman Returns. Soccer moms were complaining about Batman Returns, so we got Batman Forever. Yeah, I'm going there. I think Secret of the Ooze is the Batman Forever of the TMNT franchise, even though it was created before Batman Forever even existed. But it's comparable because both franchise star had really dark movies in the late 80s and early 90s, and they became a parody of themselves. I don't know how any kids can relate to fucking Kato. Kato was fucking lame. I didn't even like him as a kid. I thought the turtles were relatable. They were. It's like I don't care about this stupid guy who could have been removed from the movie and nothing would have changed really. I mean, Ninja Turtles 2, I mean, it literally does feel like corporate meddling. It's like it doesn't really feel like a movie that was generally made by a crew of people that really, wanted to make something, great. I hate to say this, even though I don't consider it a bad movie, and it's one of my guilty pleasures. I think TMNT Ninja Turtles 2, if you objectively look at it, was a cash grab. It was cashing in on the popularity of the franchise at the time and the popularity of the first movie. And over time, it's kind of been forgotten about if you really think about it. If you look at like many 90s movies that came and gone over the years, this movie, along with Ninja Turtles 3, have been forgotten. While the first Ninja Turtles movie is still ranked as one of the best comic book movies and possibly one of the best movies that came out in the 1990s. And that's one thing we need for TMNT, honestly. Enough of these, cash grabs and go fucking dark again. Because that's why the first of the Turtles movies, was so good. The Turtles not using their weapons pissed me off as a kid. Not as much as it does as an adult, because I've watched so many, Ninja Turtles cartoons and read a lot of comics. It's just so irritating. I mean, do these people not realize, you don't have to fucking, have the turtles decapitate fucking people or stab people or, in order for them to use their weapons? Have they never, do they not understand how movie trickery works? Ugh. It's really frustrating me because what TMNT did back in 1990, movies are doing it now in abundance. There's parents that are allowing their kids to watch movies that are like have more curse words and have more violence than anything in TMNT 1990. Soccer moms gave us this corporate cash grab. So yeah, as much as I enjoy watching TMNT, too, I would probably would watch the first one like 10 times before I watch this movie again. I mean, I have to be honest here. It's not as good as I remember it. It really isn't. I think the movie, this bring you bring up a good point. Home Alone 2 even was more violent than TMNT 2. Oh my god. That is so funny. That is so funny. Home Alone 2, a movie that is not even an action movie, is more violent than TMNT 2. Oh my god. What kind of world do we live in? Oh my god. I don't think I got much more to say about Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze. I mean, if you haven't seen it yet, for those who haven't seen it, don't. If you've seen the first one, you don't need to see that Ninja Turtles 2. Unless you're morbidly curious and you want to see what happens when corporations take control of a franchise and take what made it the first installment special and turn it into the average 90s kids flick. Well, at least Jim Henson did come back and work on the electronics. That's something you cannot deny. This his great work that he has done in this film. Even if this movie has a lot of problems, that the M electronics are greatly improved from the first one due to the increased budget. I still think at least those hold up. But if you compare it to a lot of 90s, kids movies, it just comes off as stereotypical. If you are a movie critic and you've watched a lot of movies in this era, this movie does come off as being a stereotypical, 90s kids movie. Like all the stuff that was hip and cool back in 1991 just has aged horribly. Like the first one is not those kind of movies that it's more timeless than this film is. Like even if you can might be able to change the setting a little bit for the first one and you could still have it still work in almost any era, at least after it came out. This movie just is a relic of its time, and it's not a relic in a good way, in my opinion. Okay, sorry people. Sorry people, this idiot, we had to have people like him try to ruin our fun. Okay, that was unfortunate. Don't worry, people. Don't worry, people. I got that pest, gotten rid of. Anyway, guys, I don't have much more to say. Any final questions before I end this stream? I'll give you 1 minute to address it. I got rid of him, AK Master. Sorry if these streams are not as long as I normally do, but considering that I can't drag this on anymore, I mean, 32 minutes I've already talked about this movie now. Ninja Turtles 3. Oh boy. Oh shit. I'm not prepared to watch that movie again, to be honest. I haven't seen that movie in so long. Fuck. Oh my god. Anyway, this is Darcenovia. Over and out. See you guys next time with another review, and that will be on Ninja Turtles 3. Later.